From Washington, the Mclaughlin Group, the American original. For over 2 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
If. For such a small word, it packs a wallop. If I live to 100, if Social Security isn't enough, if my heart gets broken, if she says yes. We believe if should never hold you back. If should be managed with a plan that builds on what you already have. Together, we can create a personal safety net, a launching pad for all those brilliant ifs in the middle of life. You can call on our expertise and get guarantees for the if in life. After all, we're MetLife.
Investing takes perspective. It comes from navigating up and down markets for 60 years, spotting opportunities at home and abroad. Global investing from Franklin Templeton Investments. Gain from our perspective.
Geico, committed to providing service to its auto insurance customers for over 70 years. More information on auto insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO, any time of the day or night.
Issue 1, Arab revolt.
And I also think that an important lesson that we can draw from this is real change in these societies is not going to happen because of terrorism. It's going to happen because people come together and apply moral force to a situation.
From Algeria to Iran, Arabs are applying moral force to their situations. The protesters have generally 3 things in common. They are all relatively young and they are mostly jobless. They also use online social media websites like Facebook and Twitter to organize their political activity. Over 640 people have died since protests began in late December. Algeria. Median age of the Algerian population, 27 years. Unemployment rate of the general population, 9.9%. Tunisia. Median age of the general population, 30. Unemployment rate, general population, 14. Libya. Age, 24. Unemployment, 30. Egypt. Age, 24. Unemployment, 9.7. Jordan, age 22, unemployment 13.4. Syria, age 21, unemployment 8.3. Iraq, age 21, unemployment 15.3. Yemen, age 18, unemployment 35. Iran, age 26, unemployment 14.6. And finally, the Kingdom of Bahrain, age 30, unemployment 3.7%. Bahrain, by the way, is a key U.S. ally in the Persian Gulf. It hosts the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet. The fleet keeps the Persian Gulf open for oil transport from Persian Gulf countries to the rest of the world. 35% of the world's oil passes through this Persian Gulf. The Persian Gulf is also a strategic area for the 5th Fleet to monitor Iran's activity. Question, what explains the explosive protests throughout the Middle East, especially these 10 nations? Pat Buchanan.
I think it was Tunisia, John, the first thing where they saw a dictator who could be knocked over. His security forces didn't defend him. The army didn't defend him, and he was gone in a matter of days. Suddenly it goes to Egypt. This is 1848, John, as it happened all across Europe. It's happened all across the Middle East. But I'll tell you, Bahrain is really key. It's an island of about 500,000 natives. About 70% are Shia, 30% Sunni. It's got a lot of foreign workers, and they've been shooting them in the streets on Friday after services in the mosques. And what's going to happen there, John, I think they're going to put that down with force of arms, because you got the American 5th Fleet sitting in there. And if that goes, across the causeway is the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, where there are 2 million Shia, and almost 90% of the oil is produced.
I would point out, too, that in Tunisia you had that self-immolation of the young man. Recall that? Eleanor, what do you think?
Well, as the statistics you just put up on the screen indicate, there's an incredible youth bulge in all of these countries. And they're seeing the opportunities because of the availability through Facebook and the internet. They know what's out there, and they're not getting any of it. And so I think this is really redefining what we used to call the Arab street. We used to consider those kind of fringe radicals. This is really a truly populist uprising. It's doctors, it's lawyers, it's unemployed youth, but it really is a huge swath of the population. And it's fascinating to watch the administration, because unlike with Egypt, I don't think they're nudging any of these autocratic leaders behind the scene necessarily to leave. The president is articulating America's, core interests and our core values, but he's kind of leaving it there and letting the chips fall where they may, because I think there's really worry about what happens after the revolution in these countries, if it gets to that point.
Yeah, and that's always the most vulnerable moment. It's sort of now in Egypt where everything is such in flux. I think there are a lot of different dynamics going on here, and a lot of the dynamics vary country to country. So in the case of, say, Tunisia or Algeria, you do have a great thirst for economic prosperity, economic opportunity. In a country like Egypt now, the Muslim Brotherhood has been orchestrating this from the very beginning. Muslim Brotherhood, the original community organizers, they have been waiting 80 years for this moment in Egypt. They're not going to blow it. They're riding this. We had the ominous return of al-Qaradawi, who is the godfather of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood, came back from Qatar this week into Egypt. Some ominous signs coming out of there. In Bahrain, what we really have is not so much an economic revolt or even an Islamist revolt. What we have is a monarchy that is Sunni. 70% of the population is Shia. So you have a tremendous imbalance there. And pay very close attention to Iran, because Iran is a mischief maker in Bahrain. It's a Shia state. They want to support the Shia, but also they would like to see a Shia uprising really take hold in Bahrain to get the United States' Fifth Fleet out of there.
What's the impact on Israel?
Very dangerous, because right now, look, Israel is surrounded by Iran now on all sides. Hezbollah to the north in Lebanon and Syria, Hamas in the south with Gaza. The Egyptian situation continues to unfold. It looks very dangerous. It looks like the Muslim Brotherhood and other Islamist influence could ride this to at least a conclusion that they can control and expand their influence. And now you've got Iran playing games elsewhere.
Or maybe not.
Exactly. Very dangerous.
What do you think?
Maybe not. I think that the Muslim Brotherhood, thank you, John, great to be back. Reports of the Muslim Brotherhood have been greatly exaggerated from a lot of sources. Their actual impact, to a large degree, they've been rather amazed trying to get ahead of the parade over there too. I think what's more important is, and the big lesson for despots is, if you're going to have an educated populace, get them some jobs. Egypt certainly had a lot of frustrated young educated people. We saw some of them going off to join Al-Qaeda or the Muslim Brotherhood, but a lot of them are not ideological. They just want to have a say in how they are governed. And there was really a tremendous pro-democracy spirit going on out there. And that's troubling to some people here in the States who don't want Egypt to have democracy unless they're going to elect somebody that they like.
What do you think of Mr. Obama's performance thus far?
I thought he got off to a slow start, but he got up to speed, which is not that unusual in these kind of situations. I mean, we didn't have anybody here in the U.S. predicting the fall of the Berlin Wall either. This has been a massive series of events that everybody said could happen someday, but you didn't know when.
John,
and everything kind of came together with the tipping point this time.
Is a result of a direct conflict between our ideals and beliefs, which are in democracy and one man, one vote, and in our vital interests. In Bahrain, you got an American fleet there, the Fifth Fleet, which is a check on Iran. If you have one man, one vote, you will get a Shia government there, and the Sunnis aren't going to allow that, and the king of Bahrain's not going to allow that, and I don't think the Americans want that.
Which is why you see the administration playing this very, very carefully. They're really not out front nudging these leaders aside. On the other hand, if that leader in Bahrain topples, the administration wants to be sure they're seen on the side of history and on the side of young people.
Right.
And what you have is an awakening in what was before a pretty moribund part of the world when it came to politics. And now, instead of people being afraid of the governments, you have the governments afraid of the people.
That's why the governments are starting to
stunning turnaround.
The governments are starting to use live ammunition now in all of these places.
Right.
You want to point out that in Bahrain, unlike other Muslim countries, alcohol is okay. That means our sailors are able to get a beer or a martini to freshen up.
Our sailors certainly can. Hello, sailor. Look, Bahrain is a relatively secular state. It is, because it's an absolute monarchy, and it is a vital interest of the United States. It's right there as a choke point in the Persian Gulf, where much of the world's oil flows. Did you know that there is an oil tanker from the Persian Gulf on its way to Japan every 100 miles? It comes right out of there. And also keep in mind that that island nation of Bahrain lies right next to, 13 and a half miles away from Saudi Arabia.
Right. At the same time, Bahrain is more of a commercial enterprise, actually.
I'm not getting
is a more accurate description.
I'm not getting from you, Clarence, and this surprises me because I know how.
I'm full of surprises, John.
You are?
I am.
You want to make a list and leave it with Brianna?
Then it wouldn't be a surprise.
I'm not getting a sense of how serious this whole range of 10 countries enduring this is to the globe, the planet.
It's very serious.
I mean, are we redesigning the planet?
You mentioned Israel. Problem for Israel is not war with Egypt, because I don't think the Egyptian military wants it. It is absolute, utter isolation. As Monica pointed out, they lost Iran in '79. They lost the Turks recently. They're losing Egypt. You got Hamas to the south, Hezbollah to the north, and the King of Jordan's in trouble.
Well, I don't know that their isolation is significantly worse than it was before, and I actually think the Israeli leadership has been playing this pretty well. They were nervous at first, and they now seem to be understanding that this is okay, that they're going to survive, and maybe that everybody can ride this out. Point is, we're not going to be able to control these forces.
No, I agree.
So celebrate the democratic uprising, and then
I don't
try
think
to
I'll celebrate
try
till I
to
see how
steer
this
it.
comes out.
Well,
and that's the way Israel's playing it too. They're waiting to see how it's going to come
Tunisia,
out. We don't want to make the mistake though riding the wrong pony, right?
Tunisia,
especially when you do have bloodshed on the streets in Bahrain.
Tunisia, which was the first to blow, now they're experiencing turmoil.
And
people are moving, trying to get into Italy and the island off the coast of Italy, which is Italian.
Left the country. 6,000 left the country. That's a real possibility.
So the sequel to what we see.
It's unfolding, John. You're right.
And the relief, particularly in the economy, that these countries hope.
This is the point, John. There's 2 points. One is they're fleeing Tunisia. They're frightened to death, a lot of them. And the flight from Egypt hadn't started. But how do these people?
Well, we've got an
aftermath.
We've got an aftermath of 10 countries over there.
Also, a lot of people.
How do they solve the economic problem, John? I don't know that they got the answers.
A lot of people fled Iraq also because they didn't like what was happening, and I don't remember a lot of discussion on this group worrying about that fight.
Well, and a lot of people now are leaving Egypt and going back to Iraq because Iraq seems relatively stable. But the whole question of democratization, we've got to hope for the best and hope that this sort of cracks open the whole Middle East with greater political and economic liberalization. But we also have to prepare for the worst, because this neighborhood has no track record of democracy, and the only Arab democracy that exists is the one built by the United States in Iraq. And the last democratic experience we had, the last democratic vote that we saw in the Middle East was Gaza. Hamas won with 70% of the vote.
You've got an example of a democracy, John.
What's this
the biggest democracy in the Middle East is Turkey.
Right.
And now, where have they gone? They used to be pro-American, pro-Israel, and anti-Islamic. They're moving pro-Islamic, anti-Israel, anti-American.
That's not anti-democratic.
You think it's apocalypse now?
No, I think Turkey is the best model you're going to get out of
The question: how long will it be before tourism returns to normal and we can see the pyramids and the camels, those lovely supercilious camels? Give me the day, the month, and the year when tourists will be welcome in Egypt.
When you got a functioning democratic republic.
Well, when is that?
I don't know, John. I have no idea.
You want a kid to hazard
I would say you're not going to get it back this year.
Give me an enlightened conjecture.
I think if you get a military regime, you could get it back in a year.
I've got friends who are going to Egypt next week. They are eager for tourists, and they can't wait until they have a functioning regime after elections are held 6 months.
You think it'll be back to normal?
No, I'm not going to say normal, but they're going to be there are tours that are going to be going into Egypt. People want to see what's happening there.
Well, they have to be very brave, because the reports that we've gotten out of Egypt over the last few weeks of a lot of Western journalists, CBS's Lara Logan getting brutally attacked, a lot of other male reporters getting brutally attacked. I think it's going to be quite a while before Westerners return to Egypt.
The fact is, tourism is a major industry in Egypt. The army over there is probably certainly one of the best in the region, probably the best, and they're going to do everything they can to restore tourism as quickly as they can. I think that's what you're going to see by summer.
I would say a calendar year from now, it'll be back to normal. Issue 2, Credit Card Nation.
We're not going to be running up the credit card anymore. That's important, and that's hard to do, but it's necessary to do, and I think that the American people understand that.
The United States is equivalently living off a credit card. For the fiscal year that began 4 months ago and terminates 8 months from now, the nation will run a deficit of $1.5 trillion in credit. So says the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, in its 190-page report, The Budget and Economic Outlook, fiscal years 2011 to 2021. And get this, that's the biggest amount of credit for a one-year period on record. It highlights the deterioration in America's fiscal outlook, even as the economy grinds forward and the unemployment rate drops slowly. Last year, the deficit was $1.4 trillion. The year before, it was $1.3 trillion. As a share of the U.S. economy, this year's deficit is 9.8% of GDP. It's the second highest figure since the Second World War. Now, there's more to the status of our condition, credit-wise. There is also the ongoing public debt, sometimes called the national debt. It accrues all of our annual deficit. When you add those all up, it totals over $14 trillion and increasing at a rate of $4 billion a day.
Question: why did President Obama pass up the opportunity to give Congress a budget that includes meaningful deficit reduction? Clarence.
Because it runs counter to the at least stimulus spending and tax reductions that Obama has already gotten into legislation. When you say meaningful, that of course is a relative adjective. I think that the long-term problem that we have is not with discretionary spending, it's with Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the administration isn't really ready to tackle that right now.
Well,
I wish they did, but they're not.
He wants to get everybody in the boat together at the same time.
At this point, yeah, you got to do it.
He's playing politics.
He's playing politics.
Sure.
Don't we all? Haven't we all played politics with these?
We've got a fiscal and financial crisis of a high order, John. Everybody knows it in the country. He had a deficit commission.
You want him to approach Social Security?
I would like him to lead. He's the President of the United States.
Right.
Oh, stop.
The talking points on the Republican side is lack of leadership. Right. He punted. Of course he punted. He's not going to go out there and step on the third rail by himself.
Well, what's wrong with 65 years of age versus 68 years of age?
Well, the Social Security age is already going up, and the Social Security problem is the least of the problems facing the country. But what has to happen is the leaders of the two parties have to get together, and it's begun to happen in the Senate with Senator Mark Warner and Saxby Chambliss meeting, and they have to come up with a bill that's too big to fail.
Let me add this to the pot before I go to you, Monica. Okay. Wisconsin and its $3.6 billion deficit.
These are unions that historically for years have never had anyone challenge them. They've never had anyone challenge the status quo. We're broke. We can't operate the way that we operated before.
A major showdown this week emerged between Wisconsin union workers and the Wisconsin state government. Thousands of workers, students, and union supporters picketed the state capitol in Madison. They are opposed to Governor Scott Walker's legislation, he's a Republican, remember, that would require union workers to pay more money into their state pensions and health care plans. He also wants to curb the union's collective bargaining rights. Union members say that Governor Walker wants to bust up the union. On Wednesday, President Obama stirred the Wisconsin pot by describing Walker's actions as a quote-unquote assault on the unions. On Friday, Speaker John Boehner weighed in on Facebook, saying the president, quote-unquote, attacked Governor Walker for attempting to rein in state spending. Then Speaker Boehner said, quote, call off the attacks and lead, Mr. President, unquote.
Right on.
What's the story?
Look, the state governors are in fiscal disasters just the way the federal government is in a fiscal disaster. They have to balance their budgets, and that's exactly what this governor and the new Republican legislature in Wisconsin were elected to do just 2 short months ago. What this governor is trying to do is rein in the power of government unions and reduce the size of government overall. Guess what, John? There is no money. There is no money in these states. The party is over, and the governor is going right to the public sector unions.
The other side gets to weigh in,
saying, he has gone right to the public
John,
sector
this is
unions
a-
and said
a little
there
time.
is no more money. They
John, this is a
refused to
showdown.
negotiate with the governor. The unions refused to negotiate with the governor
Right.
of a reduced compensation.
No.
So the choice
That's
is
not true.
go
All
down
right,
this
what's
road
the-
or lose
The
your
unions-
job.
showdown.
Wait a minute, let her in.
The unions are willing to yield on how much they pay for their health care and pensions and so forth. What they don't want is their right for collective bargaining to be taken away, and that's what it's about.
Right, but
and there is a possibility of a compromise here if the governor gives up that aspect of the legislation. But the bigger picture here is in all of these Midwestern and Southern battleground states, the governors who are facing budget deficits are using the cover of fiscal frugality to crack
John-
down on the unions, which are the
All right,
only
yeah,
opposition.
John, let's talk about the
Quickly, let's go.
The big issue is this is Barack Obama versus Scott Walker. He is goading the unions. He is goading the demonstrators. He's reading his
You
little
know why?
Saul
You know
Alinsky's-
why? Because
listen,
Obama has to carry Wisconsin if he's going to win
he's
re-election.
moving to the
yes
left.
Or no?
He's making a move to the left, and it's a mistake nationally.
But he will win.
He will lose
he will
Wisconsin
win
because
in 2
of
years.
it.
We'll see.
He will lose
We'll see.
Wisconsin.
Could he,
because
if
of
he
it.
loses Wisconsin, will he lose the election?
Yes.
You mean as a diagnostic or as a
I'm as a
member of
diagnostician.
The Republicans are going to overplay their hand, and they're going to do to public employee union workers and ordinary people what they did to the
Bring it
staff.
on.
They're
Okay.
gonna
As George
drive
Bush
up
said,
the
bring it
turnout.
on.
Issue 3, CPAC Launchpad. The 2011 Annual Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC, was held last week. 9 presumptive presidential candidates spoke at the conference. Haley Barbour, Mitch Daniels, Newt Gingrich, Ron Paul, Tim Pawlenty, Rick Perry, Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan, and John Thune. But one non-presumptive candidate did appear and held forth.
If I decide to run, I will not be raising taxes. We'll be taking in hundreds of billions of dollars from other countries that are screwing us. We'll be creating vast numbers of productive jobs. And thank you very much. And we'll rebuild our country so that we can be proud. Our country will be great again.
Question, is Donald Trump serious about a presidential bid, or is this a publicity ploy? I ask you, Pat.
Well, certainly it's a publicity ploy.
Really? I'm
But
shocked.
the question is he serious about it? I don't know, John, but I will say this. He is at least speaking on economic nationalism in a way that nobody else in America is. He's talking about the Chinese. He's talking about tariffs and putting those on imports into this country and rebuilding manufacturing in the country. The message is right on for a Republican. There's no Republican out there that's got this message right now. You saw who
But the
won.
messenger.
You saw who won on the
The
conservative.
messenger.
The messenger is too old. Listen,
What's this now?
you saw who won CPAC, didn't you? Ron Paul.
Ron Paul, I saw that.
It also shows there's an anti-defense or anti-war, if you will, movement inside the conservative movement, which is growing stronger.
There's
and
one
stronger.
problem
What
with
has he got?
CPAC,
What's
though.
the best thing Trump has going for him?
That thing on top of his head, whatever that was, I don't know.
No, don't make
It looked
fun of him.
adorable.
No, that
What's
he's
What's
not
the
a,
best thing he's got going
that
for
he's
him?
not a politician.
he's
No, well, that's not bad.
He's not a
He's
politician.
not an
Certitude.
incumbent. That's
He's
number
a
one.
business-
What's number two?
He's a businessman.
Certitude.
There's something even
He's
more
not
important than
an
number two.
incumbent.
What is it?
Certitude.
What?
He's got conviction and
No,
certitude.
it's not any of that.
Well, he said in that speech he carries a big stick or a heavy stick, and he said that if
I
he were
can't believe-
president of
Money.
the
This is
world,
supposed to be
the
a
world
political group.
would not be slapping
He's
us
a
around.
It's
businessman.
supposed to be a
He's
political
successful.
group, and you still haven't given it to
Money.
me. What is it?
John, it's
No,
very hard
it's
to
not the money.
It's very hard to
Not the
calculate the
money.
idea of Donald
What
Trump.
does he have?
got
What
a
does he
stick.
have?
He's
He's
got a
got
stick.
name identification. That's
This is
what he's
true.
got.
This is
That's
true.
invaluable. It costs billions of dollars practically to get that identification.
Yeah,
But the
he's
notion
not
of
a
He's
Donald
known all over.
But
Is
he's-
that a plus for him?
That is very much a plus because he'd automatically go in with 100% name recognition. But what he does have is he's got certitude and conviction. He believes something and he says it, and that's what people are looking for.
What are the negatives?
Well, in
He's had a bit of a
party,
flamboyant
Where do I begin, John?
in a party that puts family
He's a social
values
liberal.
Yes.
in the center, I
Yeah,
think he'd
exactly.
have some splaining to do.
Like what?
A couple of marriages here and
Couple of
there and
divorces.
so forth. Yeah,
Also,
and
Some interesting
you
statements.
know,
Also,
Well,
John,
I remember conducting an interview with his second wife, and she was charming, and she had wonderful things to say about him.
well, maybe he can just bring all the wives along with him and
As a matter of fact, I
turn it
interviewed the
into
first wife.
big love.
Also, John, when you run for president, you have to fill out a very lengthy financial disclosure form, which he may
Yeah.
not want to do as well. Look,
He's quite proud of his achievement, though, and there's not much that we don't know about.
He's achieved a lot, but look, he may have been the first person to address CPAC with the phrase "screwing us." But look, the bottom line is that the Republican field is a hot mess. Okay, there's no obvious leader. Each one of the major candidates, the A-list candidates, has huge baggage, so it could make an opportunity for somebody like Trump.
Should Trump run? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Independent.
Independent.
Fine if he runs, but he's not going to go anywhere.
Yes or no?
Yes, the more the merrier.
You say yes or no?
No. Well, I don't care if he runs or not. I'm saying he's not going to get the nomination. He's not going to be president. So
yes or no?
And besides that, he can't afford the pay cut.
I think he should run, but it'll be a tough, hard slog. But he should run if he's really sincere about the whole deal.
Which party?
What?
Which party?
Republican.
I think he should run probably as a Republican. Prediction, Pat.
Oil heads over 120 a barrel.
I'm probably with Clarence on this. Rahm Emanuel gets his 50% in Chicago. Doesn't in the primary. Doesn't have +1. Okay.
Quickly.
The unrest in the Middle East will give a boost to the nascent presidential bid of John Bolton.
And in Wisconsin, Governor Walker is going to surge to the front ranks of Republican hopefuls for 2012.
Right on.
I predict that the Bush name will not be hurtful in 2012 to Jeb. In fact, it will be a plus. Happy President's Day. Bye-bye.
Geico, committed to providing service to its auto insurance customers for over 70 years. More information on auto insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO, any time of the day or night.
There's a world of investment opportunities out there. Spotting them takes experts on the ground, assessing potential firsthand. Templeton, a pioneer in global investing for over 50 years. Gain from our perspective.